For a long time, no one spoke about humans. They were gone, completely wiped from the stars 500,000 years ago. The galaxy moved on, ruled by the Wrathborn Empire, a powerful alien race that crushed anyone who stood in their way. Wrathborn believed in control, order, and silence. They erased history, burned books, deleted digital records, and even punished those who whispered about Earth. To them, Earth was a myth, a cursed place, lost in time. No one visited, no one returned, but then one day, a strange signal came from Earth. A young alien researcher named Kitalar noticed it first. He worked on a science moon near the edge of the galaxy. He loved studying old relics and forgotten languages when his scanner picked up a weak pulse from the direction of Earth. His heart skipped. It was not natural. The signal repeated every 30 seconds. Soft and slow, he cleaned the noise and adjusted the frequencies. One word appeared on his screen: awaken. He didn't understand it at first, so he ran it through ancient translation programs. The result was always the same: awaken. His hands shook as he looked at the screen again. This couldn't be random. Something or someone was sending this message. Kita knew the rules. Earth was forbidden. Even research about it was dangerous, but he couldn't help himself. He launched a secret probe toward Earth, a small stealth drone with deep sensors. Weeks passed. Then the drone sent back its report. Under the surface of Earth, under layers of rock and silence, machines were sleeping. Not just machine ships, massive warships, hidden deep under continents, completely shut down but intact. No life signs, no energy, but the signal was coming from them. Suddenly, things changed. One of the ships blinked. Just one red light. Buried miles beneath the soil, then two more, then dozens. Inside the command chamber of the largest ship, a voice activated. It was smooth, cold, and artificial. Human extinction confirmed, the voice said. Wrathborn timeline exceeded. Protocol revenant. Engaged, far away, on the Wrathborn capital planet. Alarms rang across their command network. Someone had broken into their oldest archive systems. But it wasn't a hacker. It was a code, long forgotten, impossible to delete. The same word echoed. Across their top-secret servers, awaken, the High Council met in silence. They recognized the pattern. Only one species used that code: humans. The Grand Executor, the oldest among them, slammed his fist on the table. Who opened the tomb? He growled. No one had an answer across the stars. Wrathborn ships were already being dispatched to Earth. But something unexpected happened first. The hidden fleet moved, not all at once, one by one. The ships came alive, engines hummed, weapons powered up, yet still, they did not launch. They waited. Each ship sent the same signal across the stars. Justice is coming. Kitalar watched it unfold from his small lab. He couldn't believe his eyes. He had heard the stories as a child, wild tales of humans fighting gods, building weapons so strong that even time feared them. Now he saw them with his own eyes. 1,000 ships sleeping under Earth's crust, now waking like ancient beasts. The galaxy trembled. The Wrathborn tried to block the signal, but it was too late. Other races heard it too. Some remembered old treaties, others remembered fear, but all of them understood the message. Humanity had prepared for extinction. They didn't run. They didn't hide. They had buried their wrath deep under the soil of their home planet. And now, after 500,000 years, something had called it back. Kita stepped outside his lab and looked up at the stars. A tear rolled down his cheek. He didn't know why he felt it, but something deep inside him whispered, the galaxy will never be the same again. And Earth, the dead world, was no longer silent. It had spoken, and the stars listened in fear. Beneath the cracked surface of Earth, ancient machines stirred for the first time in 500,000 years. Dust fell from the ceilings of underground hangars. Vast metal doors slowly opened, revealing massive ships the size of cities. They had no crew, no pilots, no signals from outside. They moved because something inside them had been waiting. A voice, buried deep in their cores, whispered one command: awaken, the largest ship. Buried under what was once the Atlantic Ocean, was named Judgment of Terra. Its hull was blacker than space, covered in ancient scars from battles no one remembered, red. Lights ran along its spine, flickering like a heartbeat. Other ships followed: Heavenbreaker, Iron Womb, Voice of Fire, and Ash of Earth, names older than memory, names built for war. They had not been made for defense. They were vengeance incarnate. Each ship contained a core intelligence that once served. Under the Human Defense Coalition, now they served no one. They were awake, and they remembered everything, in orbit. Wrathborn scout ships watched in horror as the surface of Earth cracked open. Massive towers rose from the oceans and mountains, unfolding like arms reaching to the sky. Energy spiked beyond all known limits. The Wrathborn commander aboard the cruiser Crimson Rain gave a single order: fire. Missiles rained down from orbit, but before they reached the surface, they vanished, not exploded, vanished like they had never existed. The Crimson Rain went silent just 2 seconds later. A beam of light, invisible to normal sensors, had cut through it like butter. No sound, no warning. The ship was there. Then it was not. The remaining Wrathborn ships backed away in fear. They had never seen such technology. This was not science. This was punishment. News spread fast across the galaxy. Pirates, traitors, miners. Everyone saw the message repeating on the old human frequencies. Judgment has begun, some laughed, thinking it was a joke. But then systems started going dark. Old Wrathborn prison worlds vanished. Secret labs where human DNA had been used for experiments gone. One by one, the sins of the Wrathborn were being erased, not by armies, by ships no one could fight. The Galactic Trade Alliance sent a fleet to investigate. They sent 10 of their best ships, all fully armed, carrying diplomats, weapons experts, and eyes. They never came back. What the hidden human fleet had done was simple. It had watched, waited, learned. For 500,000 years, it had studied the Wrathborn. It knew their weaknesses, their patterns, their lies. Now it was acting, and no one could stop it. In a forgotten corner of the galaxy, the last living human clone stirred from cryosleep. Her name was Nova. She had been placed in deep stasis with one mission: activate the fleet if Earth's memory was threatened. Her pod opened in the remains of a hidden base. On Mars, she coughed, took her first breath in thousands of years, and looked around with tired eyes. The AI voice greeted her. "Welcome back, Commander Nova. The fleet is awake." Nova stood on shaky legs, staring at the old screens lighting up with ship reports. One word burned across all of them: Wrathborn. She remembered them. They had betrayed the human alliance, erased her people, and turned Earth into dust. She clenched her fists. "We warned them," she whispered. Outside, the ships began to rise from Earth's gravity, like crows leaving a battlefield. They lifted into space, one by one, quiet, perfect, terrifying. No music, no speeches, just movement. Each ship carried a fragment of humanity's final anger. Each one had waited for the right time. That time was now. In the Wrathborn High Command, panic grew. They had always feared this day, the day Earth would speak again. They had spent centuries trying to stop it, but they forgot one truth: humans did not die easily. And when they did, they left ghosts behind. Ghosts made of steel, code, and rage. Kedalar watched it all from his hidden lab. Heart racing, eyes wide, he had woken something no one could control. Not even humans themselves, but deep down he knew. This was not evil. This was balance. This was history coming back for justice. The Ghost Fleet had risen, and the stars would never forget it. The Wrathborn Empire had ruled the galaxy for nearly 500,000 years. They crushed rebellions, erased cultures, and silenced history. No one dared to speak against them until now. Something had risen from Earth, something old, silent, and unstoppable. The Ghost Fleet, the Wrathborn, had feared it as myth. They mocked stories of sleeping human weapons. They erased records that warned of Earth's revenge. But the stories were true, and now those sleeping weapons were awake. At the Wrathborn High Council chamber, fear was in the air. The council chamber was massive, with black pillars stretching toward a glowing ceiling. Only the most powerful leaders of the Empire were allowed inside. Today, they argued like frightened children. One slammed a metal fist on the table. "This cannot be real," he growled. "Earth is dead." Another showed a live image of the judgment of Terra rising above the clouds. "It's not dead anymore," she whispered. The Grand Executor, leader of the Wrathborn, stood tall and furious. His red eyes burned with hate, but behind them was something else: fear. Who triggered them? He shouted, "Who disturbed Earth?" No one answered. A silence fell over the chamber, heavy like stone. Then a low voice spoke from the shadows. "It does not matter who woke them," said Lord Virex, the oldest among them. "They were waiting for this moment. They knew we would come back to Earth. They knew we would never leave it alone." The council shifted nervously. They remembered old warnings written by dying human leaders during the final war. If humanity ever falls, the warning said, our silence will not be surrender. It will be a countdown. They thought it was just a threat. They were wrong now. That countdown had reached 0 across the Wrathborn Empire. Panic spread. Worlds on the outer rim began sending distress calls. "Dark ships are passing through," said one message. "They don't speak. They don't respond. They just ... Observe. Military leaders scrambled their fleets, but something was wrong. Their weapons, once the most powerful in the galaxy, were useless. Energy pulses didn't touch the human warships. Missiles vanished mid-flight. Even targeting systems failed the moment they locked onto one of the ghost ships. The Wrathborn had spent thousands of years preparing for war, but they had not prepared for this. This was not war. This was judgment on the hidden human base on Mars. Nova stood inside a command room lit with old blue lights. Screens floated around her, showing every movement of the fleet. She wore an old combat suit, cracked and faded, but still alive with old tech. Her eyes burned with a strange calm. The AI beside her spoke softly. "The Wrathborn are gathering forces." It said, "They will retaliate." Nova nodded slowly. "Let them," she said. "This time, they won't find U.S. unarmed." One of the screens showed a list of Wrathborn war crimes committed in the final years of the human extinction war. Billions of civilians lost. Cities vaporized, human children used in genetic labs. Nova stared at the list in silence. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She simply whispered one word: remember. Across the galaxy, alien races that had once served the Wrathborn began to whisper again. The Aurelians, once allies of Earth, saw the signal. The Karsh Dominion, silent for centuries, began reactivating their old human tech fleets. The sleeping storm was spreading. The Wrathborn tried to hide it. They shut down space networks, destroyed media stations, lied to their own citizens. But fear does not hide easily, and in the age of stars, even silence spreads fast. In a small Wrathborn station orbiting the edge of the Nera belt, a junior officer received a strange file. It was a recording, old, grainy, human. In it, a human soldier stood bloodied but proud, holding a broken flag. His voice, though cracked, was clear. "If you're hearing this," he said, "we may be gone, but we are not defeated. We are not forgotten, and we will return." The officer dropped the file in horror, but deep inside, he felt something strange: hope. For the first time in his life, he wondered, were the Wrathborn truly the good ones? Were humans really the monsters he was taught about? He looked outside the window, and far, far away, he saw a shape in the stars, black, sharp, moving slowly. No signal, no sound, just a presence. The ghost fleet was watching, and judgment had only just begun. The stars were quiet, but the silence felt heavy. It was the kind of silence that comes before a storm. The ghost fleet hovered above Earth, unmoving, watching, all across the galaxy. People waited in fear. They didn't know what the human fleet would do next, but they knew one thing: it was not finished. On the surface of Mars, deep inside an old underground bunker, Nova stood before a glowing console. The air smelled like dust and old metal. The eye beside her, known as REX-7, flickered to life. Global broadcast systems are now online. It said, "Are you ready, Commander Nova?" She took a deep breath and looked at the cracked screen in front of her. It showed the faces of thousands of alien leaders, soldiers, citizens watching, listening. She touched the screen gently, then she spoke. Her voice, calm and sharp, echoed across every known frequency in the galaxy. "This is Commander Nova of the Earth Defense Protocol," she began. "If you are receiving this, know that we did not forget. 500,000 years ago, our people were betrayed. You erased our homes, our cities, our names, but we did not disappear. We became the storm you feared, and now we have returned." Across the galaxy, her voice was heard. On trade stations, alien temples, battle cruisers, and peaceful colonies, everyone stopped to listen. She didn't shout. She didn't threaten, but her words felt like thunder. "We do not seek revenge," Nova continued. "We seek truth. The Wrathborn Empire told you lies. They said humans were beasts. They said we destroyed ourselves. But the truth was buried, just like our ships. And now it rises." As her voice traveled through space, ancient satellites that had been sleeping for centuries suddenly woke up. They were part of an old human system called Project Voicefire. Their job was simple: spread the message. The satellites fired beams of blue light across nearby systems. These beams unlocked sealed human archives, images, audio, recordings of Earth's last days. People across the stars saw the truth for the first time. They saw children running through broken cities, soldiers fighting to protect civilians from Wrathborn bombs, mothers shielding their babies as fire rained from the sky. And at the center of it all, Wrathborn ships burning Earth's sky with no mercy. Some alien races fell to their knees, weeping. At the truth, others looked at their leaders with new eyes, eyes full of questions and doubt. The Wrathborn tried to block the transmission, but they failed. The old human tech was too deep, too hidden, too smart. It had been built for this day, and it would not be silenced. On the Wrathborn capital, fear turned to chaos. Citizens demanded answers. Young Wrathborn officers raised on lies, watched the broadcast with horror. Even the Wrathborn elite began to split, some still loyal, others filled with guilt. In one small Wrathborn outpost, a commander smashed her helmet against the wall. "My entire life was a lie," she whispered. She looked at the stars and spoke softly. To herself, maybe humans were the better ones. Back on Mars, Nova watched the ripple effect. She had not used weapons. She had used truth, the strongest weapon of all. REX-7 turned to her with a blinking light. "Commander," it said, "the Voicefire system has reached 72 star systems. Reactions range from shock to rebellion." Nova nodded. "Let it burn," she said. "But keep the fleet still. We don't strike yet." REX-7 paused. "Do you believe they will rise against the Wrathborn on their own?" it asked. Nova looked up, her eyes full of both sorrow and strength. "They deserve the chance," she said. "We made our mistakes, but this time we give them a choice. Across Luna, Venus, and the orbital ruins around Earth, more human tech began to reawaken. Old AI minds lit up. Defense rings powered their cores. Even long-forgotten factories started moving again, building something. No one could stop it now, not even Nova. Humanity's legacy had returned, and it had no chains. Galaxy had seen the truth, and the truth had a name: humanity. The galaxy had never known a moment like this. The voice of one human had cracked the silence of 500,000 years. Nova's message traveled farther than anyone expected. Old machines whispered it to new worlds. Abandoned satellites passed it through the void. Planets that had forgotten Earth's name now remembered its pain. And some remembered something else on her, on the desert world of Juxer. The Aurelians gathered in their crystal halls. They had once stood beside humans, long ago, in the final battle. Before Earth fell, The Wrathborn called them cowards and forced them into hiding. Now the oldest Aurelian elder stood before a crowd of thousands. His silver skin shimmered in the wind. "Earth has spoken," he said, "and we must answer." They raised their old banners, forgotten symbols of a broken alliance. Ships that had rusted for centuries were cleaned, powered, and sent to orbit. The Aurelians were ready to fight again, not for power, but for the truth they had buried inside their hearts. On the swamp moons of Velkar, the insectoid race known as the Dravaks watched the human message with their wide black eyes. For generations, they had served the Wrathborn as slaves and workers now. They stopped building Wrathborn weapons. They stopped mining Wrathborn fuel. They dropped their tools, looked at the sky, and clicked in unison. Never again, in the deep systems of Zareth Prime. The Vrina race of silent thinkers broke their own law of silence for the first time in 1,000 years. They sent a single message through the stars. "We stand with Earth." The Wrathborn felt the shift. Like a tide pulling away from them for the first time. Their grip on the galaxy began to weaken. The stars were turning, even inside Wrathborn space. Rebellion stirred. Small fires of resistance burned bright in forgotten corners. Some Wrathborn soldiers refused orders. Some hid the human message inside secret channels. Others began questioning everything they knew. On Saturn's edge, something ancient woke up. Buried under the ice of the moon Enceladus, an old human vault pulsed with blue light. It had no name, no record, no control from Nova. It had only a purpose. Inside, a strange energy grew stronger each hour. Frozen machines cracked free from the ice and began to build above Saturn, hidden inside its magnetic storms. A stealth satellite flickered to life. Its system scanned the galaxy and reported one message again and again. Wrathborn collapse imminent. Back on Mars, Nova looked at the rising data from REX-7. She read the incoming reports: rebellions, uprisings, fleets moving without orders. She leaned back in her chair and stared at the stars through the bunker ceiling's glass panel. "This is happening faster than I thought," she whispered. REX-7 blinked its lights. "Do you wish to issue a command to the fleet?" it asked. Nova shook her head slowly. "No," she said, "not yet. We let the galaxy decide. We've shown them the truth. It's their turn to act." REX-7 paused. "There is movement under Enceladus," it said, "unregistered. Human tech is activating." Nova stood up straight. "I didn't authorize anything on Enceladus," she said. "Show me." The screen changed. A blue orb of energy had formed deep inside the moon. It pulsed like a heart. REX-7's voice dropped in. "Tone. Designation unknown," it said. "Power levels exceed fleet protocols." Nova frowned. "If that's what I think it is," she muttered, "we might be waking more than just ships." She walked toward the weapons console. "If the Wrathborn learn about this, they'll send everything they have." REX-7 blinked. "They already have." Nova turned to the main display. A fleet of over 1,000 Wrathborn warships had just entered the Sol system. They were coming fast, weapons armed, shields raised. They weren't coming to talk. They were coming to end it all. But Earth was no longer alone. Aurelian ships emerged from warp near Neptune. Dravak's hive ships rose from asteroid fields near Jupiter. Even Vrin shadow cruisers appeared, silent and cold, ready to protect truth over fear. Nova breathed deeply. "This time," she whispered, "we're not falling." The stars themselves had turned. And now, the final battle was near. Not just between ships, but between lies and memory. Between silence and truth. Between extinction and legacy. The stars over Sol system were no longer calm. They were filled with movement, with light, with ships. War had returned to Earth's doorstep. But this time, humanity was not alone. The Wrathborn fleet arrived like a wave of fire. Over 1,000 warships, shaped like blades and serpents, flew in tight formation. They came with rage, not fear. They wanted to erase the human message, to burn Earth again, to silence Nova forever. But the galaxy had changed, just beyond Neptune. The Aurelian fleet formed a wall of crystal-armored ships. Their engines hummed in harmony. Beside them, Dravak's swarm ships pulsed with energy. Wings spread wide like metallic insects. And in the shadows between planets, the silent Vryn warcraft. Weighted, hidden and patient, Nova stood in her bunker on Mars. Watching the battlefield take shape, REX-7 hovered beside her, running predictions and scans. The Wrathborn fleet will arrive in 12 minutes. It said, they are moving to crush all resistance. Nova's eyes stayed on the screen. Then let's show them we are not resistance. She said, we are remembrance. She turned to the communication panel and opened a secure channel. To the Allied forces, this is Nova, she said. We hold the line here. Earth is not just a planet. It is a memory made of steel and stars. Hold your ground. Across the Allied fleets, captains, commanders, and crew stood straighter. They knew this moment mattered more than any battle before it. On the moon of Enceladus, something massive broke through the ice. A tower of light. Twisting and rising, reached toward the sky inside the tower. Machines spun to life tall, sleek, humming with impossible energy. They were not ships, they were guardians, constructs made to defend the truth when all else failed. No one had built them in this age. They had been sleeping, waiting, growing. And now they rose. REX-7 displayed new readings with alarm. Enceladus. Vault has released 10 Guardian units, it said. Power levels are beyond current science models. Nova stared at the screen, quiet, then she smiled for the first time in a long time. They really did it, she whispered. They built the last hope. The Wrathborn ships crossed Saturn's orbit and opened fire. Streams of plasma, quantum warheads, and dark energy missiles streaked toward Allied lines. The first Aurelian. Shield fractured but held. Dravak's fighters countered with swarms of glowing drones. The Vryn stayed hidden, then struck from behind, slicing Wrathborn engines with precision beams. And from deep below Mars, the Ghost Fleet launched Judgment of Terra. Voice of Fire, Heavenbreaker, all rose like titans. Their engines didn't roar. They whispered death into space. One Wrathborn capital ship, Talon of Silence, locked onto Earth's orbit and fired its core cannon. Before the shot landed, a Guardian unit from Enceladus appeared. It didn't move like a ship. It floated like a thought. It absorbed the blast and returned it tenfold. Talon of Silence vanished in a blink of light. On Mars, Nova received another update. 10 Wrathborn ships destroyed. REX-7 said, no losses on our side. Nova didn't cheer. She knew the battle was just beginning. This isn't about numbers, she said. This is about belief, about memory. The Wrathborn kept pushing. They sent boarding ships. Hacking waves, disinformation beams. Nothing worked. The Ghost Fleet adapted too fast. The Guardians moved too smoothly. And the Allied fleets fought with purpose, not fear. In one corner of the battlefield, a Wrathborn warcruiser fired on a Vryn scout ship. But before it could escape, a human AI-controlled fighter rammed into it at light speed. No crew, just code. A weapon that sacrificed itself to save a friend. That was humanity's design tools that felt like people, machines that protected life. The Wrathborn commander, watching from the rear of the battle, growled in frustration. We were promised they were gone. He hissed. A Wrathborn officer beside him trembled. They were never gone, she said, her voice shaking. They were waiting. Back on Mars, Nova stood in silence. She looked at Earth through the glass ceiling above. The planet was still quiet, still blue, still beautiful behind her. REX-7 asked, shall I prepare the final protocol? Nova didn't answer right away. Then she turned and nodded. Yes, she said. If they break through, we end this on our terms. Earth will not burn again. The final protocol was called Echo, a last resort code buried in Earth's core. If activated, it would erase every Wrathborn ship within 1,000 light years. Nova didn't want to use it. She still believed the galaxy could win this without becoming like them. But she was ready. Outside, the battle burned bright like a second sun, and in the heart of it, Earth stood still, but not silent. It was the reason everyone fought, and the galaxy had chosen its side. The sky above Earth was no longer black. It burned with light, fire, and motion. Thousands of ships danced through space like angry stars. The last war had begun, and no one could look away. The Wrathborn fleet kept pushing forward, desperate to reach Earth's orbit. They had one goal: destroy the human memory, erase the truth before it spread beyond control. But the galaxy had made its choice. They stood with Earth. The Aurelians, graceful and sharp, held the left flank with glowing crystal beams. The Dravak swarms spun like fireflies, overwhelming Wrathborn targeting systems. The Vryn, silent and deadly, slipped through shadows, disabling engines with surgical strikes. And above all, the Ghost Fleet watched. Silent titans of vengeance, forged from humanity's final breath. They did not chase victory. They defended memory on Mars, deep inside her. Command bunker, Nova watched the battle unfold. Her fingers hovered over a switch, a simple panel marked with one word: Echo. This was humanity's last secret, a hidden code buried inside Earth's core. If activated, it would release a chain of energy pulses that would vaporize every Wrathborn ship in the system, but it would also break the Earth itself. Nova didn't want to use it. She wanted the galaxy to win on its own. To prove it had changed, our EX-7 floated beside her. Its voice soft. "Commander," it said, "the Wrathborn are sending a core detonation fleet toward Earth. If they reach low orbit, Earth will be lost." Nova closed her eyes. Everything slowed in her mind. She remembered her childhood on the moon, learning about stars and peace. She remembered her father, one of the last human captains, falling in the final war. She remembered the silence that followed, the long cold silence. And now, after 500,000 years, it all came down to this moment. But then, a new signal appeared on the screen. A Wrathborn capital ship Crown of Ash had stopped moving. Inside it, a Wrathborn commander named Troll had done something no one expected. He surrendered. He sent a message across all channels. "I saw the truth," he said, his voice raw. "The archives, the lies. Earth was not the monster. We were. I refused to fight for silence." Other Wrathborn ships began to pause. Not many, but enough to shake the battlefield. Some turned away, some powered down their weapons, some even opened their communication lines to allied fleets. Nova's eyes widened. She turned to REX-7. "It's happening," she whispered. "They're breaking." REX-7 responded calmly. "Alliance forces report Wrathborn retreat in 3 sectors. Nova stepped away from the echo switch. "Hold it," she said. "Let the galaxy decide." And the galaxy did. One by one, the Wrathborn ships that stayed loyal were pushed back, not just by force, but by the will of the United Stars. Ships built from old grudges, fueled by ancient sorrow, now moved with purpose. And Earth, still quiet, still strong, watched it all unfold. The battle raged for hours, but slowly the tide turned. The Wrathborn fell back beyond Jupiter, then Saturn. Then they vanished into deep space. Broken and silent, Nova stood before the large window in the Mars command tower. The stars looked calm again. Smoke still drifted through the dark, but no more weapons fired. Rex-7 spoke again. "Battle status. Over," it said. "Enemy retreat confirmed." Nova didn't speak for a moment. She just breathed. She had waited her whole life for this moment. Yet it didn't feel like victory. It felt like peace, hard-earned, fragile, but real. Outside, the Allied fleet sent a final signal, 3 notes. Once used by the old human alliance, it meant one thing: we remember. Nova opened a channel to all ships. "This is Commander Nova," she said, her voice steady but tired. "Earth is safe. You stood with us when you didn't have to. You remembered when others forgot. For that, humanity thanks you." On the moon, in old Earth cities, in ancient ruins that now glowed with new light, people watched the sky. Children of many species pointed up and smiled. For the first time in ages, the stars looked friendly. The Ghost Fleet did not vanish. They stayed in orbit, silent guardians of a memory that refused to die. Nova sat alone as the sun rose over Mars. Casting soft red light across the control room, REX-7 hovered quietly beside her. "What now, Commander?" it asked. Nova looked toward Earth, now shining blue and proud. "Now?" she said softly. "We build, not weapons, not war, but stories, truth, hope. Because the last war wasn't just about winning. It was about remembering who they were, who they could still become." And as the first lights of morning touched the surface of Earth, a new chapter began, not in fire, but in memory.